available in SAP world. That is hub-based architecture, and second is like embedded architecture or embedded landscape. Okay, so what is the difference between hub landscape or central hub landscape or embedded landscape? Anyone knows what is embedded and what is central hub? So central hub means there can be one gateway server. Okay, there can be one gateway server which is interconnected with all different backend systems. Means there can be a separate server for CRM, separate server for ERP, separate server for SCM, and all these are different servers. So all these servers are connected with a single gateway server or single gateway hub. Okay, that is nothing but your central hub or central hub landscape. Okay, and similarly, what is embedded? So there will be only one single server, and within that server, we will have a backend system and your front end system involved. Okay, that is nothing but your embedded system. Okay, so if let's say if there is a separate server for CRM, separate server for SCM, separate server for ERP, so every system will have its own gateway server installed in it. Okay, so there will be there will be not a see, in central hub there will be only one gateway server, but when it comes to the embedded, every backend will have their own gateway server. So likewise, if there are SCM, CRM, SCM, and ERP, so there are three different gateway server for that. Okay, and everything will be involved in a single server. So now one which I'm using, it is also embedded. Now within the single server, I have a access to the backend as well as front end. So when we talk about the front end, so front end is nothing but your gateway server. Okay, so now to access a gateway server, I don't have to open one more system here because gateway and my backend both are involved, both are available in a single system. That is your embedded. Okay, so let me open this system S4HANA. Okay, so this is the system which we have to use to implement OData service. Now within the system, where we implement the OData services. So for that, the transaction is SEGW. So we have a gateway service builder, which is like an infrastructure or the environment which is being developed for building a OData services. So it is a you can call it as it is a structure or it's an interface which provides all the necessary software or components which are required for building a OData service. So where we build our OData service in Gateway Service Builder, and to access the Gateway Service Builder in your SAP system, for that transaction is SEGW. Okay, so this is the gateway server. It is a SAP Gateway Service Builder, and it's a tool or interface where it's an environment in which we build our OData services. Okay, so within this Gateway Service Builder, so to create a project, what we do basically, we click on this create project icon. So guys, whenever you are creating any OData service, for that we have to create OData project. So I will click on this create project in this. So now let's start and let's provide a OData project name. So I'll give a simple because already we have a couple of projects here. Okay, what should I give here is the OData underscore. Okay. So the name of my service is the OData underscore demo underscore service. So this is the name of my project. Now you can provide a basic description for this project. Demo service for Wi-Fi. And now after that, yes, you keep this project type and generation strategy as a default option. And now just click on the local project. So if you have the TRR package, then you can specify. Otherwise you keep it in a local object. That's fine. So I'm keeping this project in a local object. Okay. So after creating this project, basically we have a data model, service implementation, runtime artifacts, and service maintenance. Okay, let's go one by one what it is all about. So in data model, mostly we will have a information about the entity sets, association, and entity types. So in few minutes, we'll see what is entity types, association, and entity set more in detail. But it's the data model specifically it holds the model data. Okay, and that model data, it is categorized in entity types, association, and entity sets. So I'll explain this in few minutes once we create a basic OData service. After that, we have a service implementation. So under the service implementation, we can have a different ABAP methods. Okay, we can have a different methods which are available for an OData service. So like, for example, when I create any OData service, for that, we can have a different CRUD operations. Like we need a service for create. We want to update a record. We want to delete a record. So for that, there can be a different methods which are available in service implementation. And that methods we have to implement, then only we can perform CRUD operations on that OData service. So that will be available. As of now, these folders are blank because we have not added any data source, right? So we have not created any entity sets. So that's why all these folders are blank. So runtime artifacts means, so this is the folder which will, the content within this runtime artifacts folder will be added when you click on this symbol, generate runtime objects. Okay. So basically what it does, it creates model provider class and it creates data provider class. Okay. All these are different classes which will have a detailed information about our service. So we'll see that going forward. And after that, at the last, we have service maintenance. So this folder will have basic information of where the service is registered. So guys, when we create any OData service for the first time, definitely we have to register that service on the gateway server. So when we register that service on the gateway server, then only the applications which are outside, okay, which are outside like any web application or mobile devices. So all these applications will have access to this OData service when it is registered on the gateway server. Okay, so before that, they will not have any access to this OData service. Okay, so now let's create. So before we create this entity set, so let me go to SC11. Okay, so in this, what we have to do, so we have to create a service according to one table. Okay, so I would be taking, or I would be considering one default table from SAP, and then from that we have to read the data, or we have to create our service according to that table. Okay, because definitely every service will be involved on a table, right? Otherwise, what is the purpose of creating the OData service if you are not able to read the data from the table? Okay, just 1 second. So now we have to create a service according to one database table or a structure. So I would be using a database table which is already created. So I've created one custom table, and that table name is ZT purchase order. Okay. So this is the table which I have created earlier, and let me just click on display once. Okay. So it's table, it's more of like a purchase order table, and the fields which are required for the purchase order table, that only I have added here, like SR number and EBELN. So these two fields are a key fields within this database table. MNDT, you already know, it holds the client specific details. And then there are rest other fields like company code, purchasing document category, and all these are fields which are available in this. Okay, so I created a simple custom table, and within this I have added a couple of fields from the standard table, that is EKKO. Okay, So from this, what we have to do, so this is a table. So we have to create a service which will have all these fields information available in this within that service. OK, and accordingly, like in our front end, we have to create a table which will display all these details of this service. OK, so now let's see whether this table holds some data or not. So to check the data, we have here contains icon, and I will simply execute this. So you can see around like we have a couple of records in this table. OK, so we have a couple of EBELN values, and for that we have SR number. OK, so every so the combination of SR number and EBLN is unique, because both are primary keys in this table. OK, so that are key fields in this table. So the values that it holds, both should be unique. It should not repeat. OK, so let's use this existing structure to create our OData service. So the name of table is this. So I'll go back to SAGW now. Now to create a service. OK, so I'm going to create a service. So to create a service, basically service is divided in different entity types and entity sets. OK, so first, whenever we have to create a service, so we have to create a entity types and entity sets. OK, because entity set is what we have to consume in our UI5 application. So UI5 application, it's only looking for entity sets, not for entity types. OK, so to expose any data via the service, we need entity sets. So we have to create entity set now. So to create an entity set, right click on this data model. So there is an import option, and we have to import from DDIC structure. OK, so DDIC structure means the table from which we have to import. So just select on this option, import DDIC structure. And now I will provide a name to this DDIC structure. So I'll definitely give like PO header. OK, so this is a name of my entity type. And after that, you can keep this as an entity type. Don't go with a complex type. And after that, you can provide the name, or you can just copy paste the name of ABAP structure. So in this case, ABAP structure means your database table, or that's your custom table. So I'll paste that ZT purchase order. And now there is a default check option for like create default entity set. So every entity type is interrelated with entity set. Now, what is the difference between entity type and entity set? So entity set, it's more of like a table which can hold n number of records. Entity type means it is more of like a structure. OK, so within a single record, we can have n number of fields, right? A single record can have n number of properties. So all these properties are nothing but your structure. So that structure will be stored within this entity type. So if in interview, if anyone is asking you about what is entity type is nothing but it's a structure of a table. OK, now let's click next. Now see, when we click next, it's picking all the fields from that table, from that custom table. So from this table, how many fields I want to expose in a OData service. So apart from MNDT, I want to expose all different fields. OK, all remaining fields I need in OData service. I don't have to display the client information in that. OK, so I'll uncheck this MNDT and I'll say next. So now within this, now we have to select key fields. So what are the key fields in this table? SR number and EBELN. So these two are key fields in this. OK, now just click finish. That's it. OK, see now after creating, you can see some data in service implementation, like there is a PO header set. OK, this is nothing but your entity set. OK, and now if on top, if you go for data model, so under the entity type, you can see a PO header. So this which definitely holds the properties which are required. And again in entity set, we have PO header set. OK, so every time you create an entity type, entity set is created parallelly for that. And an UI5 application only needs entity set, not entity type. Always remember that. So any service that we want to consume in our UI5 application, for that, we should always look for entity sets. Okay, because we need entity set, not entity type in UI5 application. Now, in under the service implementation, can you see we can implement different service for this? We can implement different methods for this. Like, as I said, any service that you want to consume, it definitely follows some HTTP methods. So what are different HTTP methods like get, post, put, merge, and delete? All these are HTTP methods. Okay, but in ABAP, okay, now you want to create. Now let's say you want to create a service which can read the data from the database. So in HTTP, which is the method to read the data? Get. So get is the HTTP method which will read the data. Just 1 second, wait. I'm not sure whether there is a PowerPoint in this. I guess it's there. Okay. So in this, when you consider 1 second. Yeah. So in this, so from HTTP, basically there are like, okay, so like HTTP methods. So there can be a different types of methods in this. So first is get, second is post, sorry, put slash merge and delete. And again, there is update. Okay. So sorry, there is no update. Update is nothing but your put and merge. Okay. So whenever you want to read the data, as I said, at OData service, it is REST-based API and it follows HTTP protocol. Okay. OData service or OData protocol, it is based on REST API, but it follows HTTP protocol. Like any communication that you're making over the internet, it must follow HTTP methods. Okay, or HTTP protocol. So now let's say from OData service, we want to read the data. Okay, so over the internet, it will call get as a HTTP method. Okay, so wait. Now within this, when you trigger a get method, okay, when you create a get method, so which method it will trigger? Okay, so let's say this is your get from HTTP, but from OData side, which method it will trigger? So in this gateway server, when you go, there can be how many methods? There are 5 methods as of now: create, delete, get entity set, and update. So to read a data, it always triggers get entity set. Okay. So from ABAP side or from OData implementation side, we have to implement get entity set or get entity, right? So this is a method which will be triggered if you are calling get as a get from the OData service. Okay. Now now let's say we have to create a new record in a database. So from HTTP side, it will trigger post as a HTTP method. But in your backend, which method it will trigger? From backend, it will trigger create method. Okay, it will trigger create. Now for put and merge, which method it will trigger? So in your backend, it will trigger update. And for delete, For delete, it will trigger delete. Okay. So all these are methods which we have to implement. Now, first of all, we will create or we will implement a method called get. Okay, because I will create one service which can help us to read the data from OData service. And for that, we have to implement get entity set or get entity. So what is the difference between get entity set and get entity? Anyone knows? Anyone knows what is the difference between get entity set or get entity? I hope guys, you have implemented this service, right?
Entity is like a structure and entity set is like table.
No, but what is the difference between that? Get entity and get entity set. What if I implement get entity, what will happen? And if I implement get entity set, what is the difference between both methods? Okay, that's fine. So the difference between is, see, if I'm a developer and if I need a service which can return n number of records, like I want to design a table in UI5. Now within that UI5 table, like I want to read 100 records. So for that, we have to implement get entity set. Okay. So get entity set will return 100 or like n, it can return n records. But when we implement get entity will always need a key values. Okay, it always needs key values to be passed and it always returns a single record. Okay, that is a difference between get entity set or get entity. So whenever you want to read a single record by passing key values, for that, get entity must be implemented. And whenever you want to read n number of records from a service, for that, we have to implement get entity set. Okay, so that is a basic difference. So now let's go back in our SCGW and let's implement our methods. Okay. So this is my gateway service builder. Now see, as I created the entity type and entity set, so we haven't created any association yet. Okay, we will create that maybe probably tomorrow. So before we create our service, before we implement our methods, so first important thing is we have to generate runtime objects. So why we have to create runtime object? Because it will create the classes. It will create your base class, extension class. All these classes will be created in your backend. Then only we can implement and then only we can write our custom logic to implement this service. Okay, so we need some classes which we can override to write our own custom logic. Okay, so for that we need a classes. So to generate a classes, we have to click on this generate runtime objects. So before we click, first of all, let me click on our project, which we have created. And now I will click on generate runtime objects. OK, so see so this is a basic pop-up when you create a runtime objects for the first time. So whenever you are creating a runtime objects for the first time, you can see we have a class name and base class name for model provider class. And similarly, we have for data provider class, right? The class name and base class name. So base class will be created every time when you click on this generate runtime objects. Okay, and this your MPC underscore ext and your DPC underscore ext. These are like a subclasses of your base class. Okay, so main class is which is the main class? Base class. Okay, and which is a subclass? MPC underscore ext. The classes which you can see with the extension underscore ext, those are your subclasses. Okay, and these classes will be generated only once for the first time. Next time again, if you click on this generate runtime objects, so next time these classes won't be overridden. Okay, only which class will be overridden? Your MPC and your DPC. Only your base class will be overridden when you click on this generate runtime objects. So now going forward, where we have to write our logic, we must write our logic in MPC underscore ext or DPC underscore ext because these classes will not be overridden in future. if any developer is coming and is generating the runtime objects. Okay. So on safer side to be, we have to write our logic and we have to write our logic, custom logic in dpc underscore ext and mpc underscore ext, not in service underscore emp or dpc. These are base class. So in base class, we should not write any logic. Okay. And now after that, we have service registration. Now in service registration, you can see the technical service name and technical model name. Okay. So mostly the for front-end developer, right? He only needs the technical service name of the app. So if you are an app developer and you want to provide details to the front-end developer, so we always provide a detail of technical service name. Okay. So now let me copy paste this technical service name and I'll just wait. I think we just need one notepad file. Okay, this is the service which I'm going to create and I'll just say continue. And now it will ask like whether you want to store this any package. So I'll go with a local object as of now, a temporary package. Okay. Now, once we generate the runtime objects, you can see under the runtime artifacts, there are some certain classes which are created in this. OK, so now we have our details in each and every folder. Now, after generating the runtime object, what is the next step? OK, the next step would be how you can provide access to this service to the outside world, how you can provide, how this service can be consumed by the UI5 application. So they can consume this. How? First of all, we have to register this service on the gateway server. OK, so there is a service catalog in which we have to register or we have to maintain this service. OK, so just click on this local and you can see what is the registration status of this service. As of now, it is not registered yet. If the registration of the service is done, then you can see a green symbol here. OK, a green color icon here. As of now, this service is not registered. Okay, so we have to register the service. So there are two ways to register the service. You can directly click on register on this, or there is a separate T code for that. You can write iwfnd/maint underscore service. Okay, sorry, I think I have typed wrongly. Sorry. Spelling mistake. So what is the T code? iwfnd/maint underscore service. This is a T code in which we mostly register our OData service. OK, so it is a service catalog. So what is the T code to access this? iwfnd/maint underscore service. This is a T code in which you can access this OData service. OK, now in this catalog, we have to register our service. And how to register our service? So there is an add service here. OK, so click on add service. And now we must have to select a system alias here. So system alias is local. As we are using embedded system, so we have to go with the local as a system alias. So guys, when there are different, so see, there is a logic behind the system alias. So there can be a different system alias that we have to choose. OK, how you can decide like which system alias we have to choose? It all depends on the landscape that you're using. As this is an embedded landscape, so as my front end and back end server both are involved, both are available in a single system. That's why I'm going with the local. But in case of central hub, like the place where we have a separate system for gateway server and there is a separate there is a separate system for backend. So in that case, your system alias might be different. OK, so your system alias might be different. So for that, like you can take a help from your basis team. They can help you on this. OK, but system alias depends on like which type of landscape you're using. So this is an embedded one. That's why I'm going with the local. Now just paste your technical service name. Maybe in technical or in external, both will be fine. And now just click on get service. Okay. So after generating a runtime objects, then only you can like after that you can register this service, and this is the service. So we have to select this service by clicking on this arrow. Okay. So once this service is selected, we have to click on add selected service. So once the service is added, what it will do? It will create ICF node for that service. Okay. It will create a ICF node for that service, and so that this service can be exposed to the outside world. And for every service, there will be a service document, a service metadata document, and that will be generated. The metadata will be loaded for that service. Okay. Now this service is added in our service catalog now. Now, if you want to search for that service, you can just go to filter and you can provide that service name and you can search. Okay, see, this is our service. Okay, so just now we have registered, and for that there is a ICF node created, and even there is a system alias for that service. So whenever you want to delete any service, first you can delete the ICF node, you can delete the system alias, and then you can delete this service entirely. Guys, any questions in this? Any questions for the service registration? Is it clear? Any questions for service registration? Now you know like in which Decode we have to register the service.
Yeah.
So yeah, after registering the service, now we have to test our service, right? So because there must be some environment or there must be some place where we can test our OData services, like how we test our UI5 apps. So UI5 apps can be tested using developer tools of any Chrome browser, any browser. Every browser have their own developer tools through which we can test the UI5 applications. But in case of OData service, like they have their own gateway client. Okay. So whenever you want to test any service, so we have to jump or we have to open gateway client. Okay. And that gateway client is nothing but your SAP gateway client. So as this service is already selected, so you can see this SAP gateway client. You can click on this gateway client. And this is what the place or environment where we can test our OData service. So guys, how this is possible? Like you have seen the service catalog, the gateway client, all these are coming from the different components. Okay. And there are different software components which are installed on your gateway server. So what are those components? What are those components?
Could you repeat again the question, please?
Yeah, so I'll tell you. So see, mostly in your gateway server, like earlier before SAP Net Viewer 7.4. One second, just 1 minute. Okay, so I'll add one more box. This, yeah. So we have a SAP Net Viewer version. Okay, so like earlier, as of now, my SAP Net Viewer version is 7.40. Okay, it's greater than 7.40. So there are if your SAP Net Viewer version is less than 7.40. Okay, the Net Viewer which I'm using. Okay, this one. You wait. We can go to system, go to status, and you can see the details. Okay, this is on-premise 1909 as of now. And you can see the software version. And in this, you can see one component, SAP_GWFND. Okay, so there are three software components which are required to implement any OData service on gateway server. What are those components which we need for then only we can implement the service? See, there are three important components. One is IW_BEP. Second is, what is second? Second is GW_core. And third is IW_FND. Okay. So these three are nothing but these are important software components which we required to implement any OData service on the gateway server. Okay. And these three components provides a different functionality. Like for to test service, for that we need GW_core. For we need IWFND for registration purpose, and we need this IW_BEP where we this can be used for building a backend logic. Okay, the service implementation that we do, the code that we write, for that we need IW_BEP. So all these three components are required. Okay, but these three components are required earlier, like if your NetViewer version is less than 7.40. Okay, but now the version which I am using, it's more than 7.40, and for that there is only a single component. That is, what is that component? That component is SAP_GWFND. Okay, it's only a single component which comprise of this three components which we discussed now: IWBEP, GW_core, IWFND. Okay, if your SAP Net Viewer version, or if your SAP Net Viewer gateway version is, if it is less than 7.40, so I'm talking about gateway version, guys. Okay, so if your gateway version is less than 7.40, so for that earlier there are three different components must be installed in your gateway server. Then only we can test the service on gateway client, we can register, and we can implement our backend logic. But now, as of now, my gateway server version is more than 7.40. So only single software component is required, and which is that SAP_GWFND. Okay, now you got it. It's 7.54. Guys, is that clear? Which software components are required?
Yeah.
Okay, so as I already have GW_FND, so using that only I can test the service on this on my gateway server. I can register that, and even I can any backend logic I want to add. So for that, IW_BEP is there. Okay, so let's go back now. So after registering that service, now it generally opens SAP Gateway Client. Okay, from that, and you can see this is what the URL will be generated. So can you see this URL? So within this URL, we have a technical service name. Now, as a UI5 developer, I only need this URL. Okay. So if you're a ABAP developer, and if UI5 developer is asking for OData service details, then what we can do, we can simply provide this service name. That's it. You can copy this entire service and you can provide these details to the front-end developers. Now from that, he will check. So mostly every service will have two informations. One is your service document and second is your service metadata document. Okay. So now see, when I want to execute this service, so this is the service URI, and I'll just click on execute. Okay. Now you can see this is my service document details. Okay, it is a service document details in which I can see the list of entity sets, and I can see the URL of the entity. I can see the URL of OData service. So this is a basic service document, which if you're running this service from here. Okay, so as I said, every OData service it follows HTTP protocol, and you can see the HTTP methods here. Now, which HTTP method we triggered as of now? Get. Okay. And whenever you're getting a response from any service, so what should be the status code? Status code must be 200. So guys, 1 second, wait. Okay, so there can be different status code. Okay, so when you see a status code with 200, it means that is success. If you see 201, it's mostly you will see the status code of when you create a record. Okay, when the record is created, for that you will get 201 created as a status code. So this status code you will mostly see when you're creating a new record in your database table. At that time, it will return 201 as a status code. Okay, but both are success only. Okay, success means your service is successfully, like whatever the operation that you want to perform, it's successfully done. So for that, you're getting status code as 200 or 201. So again, there can be a 300, which can be like a authorization issue. Again, there is like a 400. So 400 status code belongs to like not found. Okay, so mostly you'll get 400 for the not found, and even or for bad request. Bad request means like any, if you're reading a service, it has some syntax error, or the name of entity set is incorrect, then in that case you will get 400. Okay, and let's say if you're passing any data to the backend for creating a new record, within that data, if some field name is wrong, if it is wrongly defined, then in that case also you will get bad request. Okay, and then there is a 500. So what is the purpose of 500 status code? It's an internal server error. So this error you will get from the server. Okay, this is not a front end. This is not a UI5 application error. So guys, if you're reading any service, if you're reading any data from database and you're getting this 500 as a status code, it means there is a problem with the server. Like if server might be down, or your service has some implementation issues. Okay, if there is any error in implementation of OData service, at that time also you will get 500 as a server error. Okay, so that is a purpose of basic this status codes. Okay, so 300, 1 second, I think 300, there is a different reason for that 300. Okay, we'll see this 300 once. But mostly the status code that always you are able to see is 200, 201, 400. There is also 401 or 405 something, and again 500. These are common status code you will always see whenever you're implementing OData services. Okay, and even from your UI5 application. So from UI5 application, I've shown you a couple of OData services, right? So this is about the OData service. Now let's go back to the gateway client. Now there is one more thing. So guys, the data that you receive from the OData service, it can be in two formats. One is your atom/XML or JSON format. So there can be two types of data which any OData service can provide, that is a XML data or JSON data. Now the data that you are seeing, the response that you are seeing, it's in XML format, right? It's in XML format. Okay. 1 second. So what is the OData version that we are creating here? It's OData v2 version. Okay. The data that the OData service which I'm creating, it's of version 2.0. So that is a default version that we can create of a OData service here. So it is a 2.0 OData service. Wait, I'm just checking. You can see here the data service version is 2.0. Okay. One more thing which just now I forgot to explain. Status code, fine, I explained. Content type. Yeah, content type is that only, like what type of data you're reading. So there can be two ways to read the data. There are two types of data which OData service can return. One is JSON format, next is XML format. So by default, the data you will get in the XML format. But in UI5 application, by default, you'll get the data in JSON format, because JSON format is a preferred data format. And I think I've explained, right? The size of JSON format is less as compared to the XML, right? I think I've explained this.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine, I think. Yeah. So content length as of now is 921 of this XML. But let's say if you want to see this in JSON format, so on top there is add URI option. You can click on that and you can select $format equal to JSON. And now you execute. Now see, content length is hardly 36. And this is what the data which I'm able to read in a JSON format. So this is your JSON format data. OK, so guys, let's say if my service is incorrect. OK, I'm just removing V from this SRV and I'll execute this. Now, what is the status code which I'm getting? 403. OK, so whenever there is a syntax error or anything, so for that, always you will see the status code from 400 series. Now the status code which I'm getting is 403. It means we have to cross check. And you can also see no service found for namespace and the name of the service is given. OK, so make sure to cross check that. Just execute. Again, you'll get 200. Now let's say format name is incorrect. And again, I'm executing. Now see, what is the status code? 400. And what is the reason? Bad request. So if you're reading the data which has incorrect URL parameters or whatever the parameter or the URI option that you're passing, if it is incorrect, for that also the status code would be 400. OK, I hope you're getting all these status codes, guys. So whenever you're reading the data from the network, if you see the status code as 400, OK, if you see the status code as a 400, make sure to recheck your URL, the entity set name that you're passing. Cross check all the URL names. OK, so one of the important feature of OData service is that it provides the URI, which is nothing but your uniform resource identifier. OK, this is a unique resource identifier which we have to use to consume a OData service. And this is your URI. So within this URI, till here, it's your technical service. And after that, we can append the entity set name, right? As of now, we added PO header set. OK, now we already know. As of now, we have not implemented this methods, any method for this service, right? So now let me call a get as a HTTP method and let me execute. See which error I'm getting now, guys. I'm getting 501 and the status reason is not implemented. So whenever you see a status code of 500, whenever you see a status code with 500 series, it means it's a server side error. OK, it means the service is not implemented properly or there is some issue with the service, right? So that's why I'm getting 501 as a status code. OK. Yeah, so now let's see. How we can implement. So whenever you're making a get call to the entity set, so which method it's calling from above? It's calling PO header set underscore get underscore entity set. This is what the method it is referring. So indirectly, it's triggering get underscore entity set. Now we have to go back in our ABAP workbench and now let's implement this PO header set underscore get entity set. OK, So guys, yeah, 1 second. I think before we add, so let's talk about the service metadata document for a while. Okay, just 1 second. So anyone knows how to read a metadata of a service? Okay, why we need metadata of service? Anyone knows?
To know the entity types, the structure.
Exactly right. We must know, like, to know more about the structure of table, to know more about the OData service, like what all details are available within the service, what all different properties are available within the service. For that, we always have to check metadata. And to check the metadata, you can simply append $metadata. Okay. So just add question $metadata at the end of URL and just execute. I think server is slow. Just 1 minute. Looks like the server is slow, guys. Just hold on. I think it's still loading. Fine. So I'm getting 501 as an error. 1 second. Let me add $metadata. Okay. So this is a metadata and let me execute this. Sorry. So guys, whenever you're adding metadata, make sure to remove this entity set name. Okay. Always remove or remember to remove that entity set name. You can directly append this $metadata at the end of the technical service name. And now just execute. See, so this is your metadata of the service. Wait. Add URI option as $metadata. Let's execute this. Now I am confused why it's not showing all the details like property details, right? Yeah, wait 1 second.
I think this get entity set is not implemented, so that's why it is showing. If it will be implemented, at least then it won't.
No, normally it shows. Normally
Yeah,
it shows the metadata.
yeah, I mean, once you implement, then you put the metadata, it will show, I believe, actually.
Okay, fine. Let me give a try that as well.
Yeah.
See, the problem was with the question mark. Okay, so after the slash, there was question mark I have added. Because of that, it was not reading a normal metadata. Okay, so this is a metadata of a service. If you want to run this service in a browser, so you can run this response in browser or something. Okay, see, this is the output which I'm getting in a browser. So this service, it can easily run in a browser now. Okay, and this is a URL. Sorry, not URL, or you can simply copy the URL. You can get that URL as well from this. See, okay, this is the URL of the service. And go with new tab and you can simply search. Okay, so this is a metadata of the service. Now, within this metadata, we can have the details about the entity type. So this is what the entity type we have created. And within that entity, there are two key fields for that structure. What is that two key fields? SR number and EBELN. So these are two key fields for that service. And when you scroll down, so we have a properties here, different properties here. OK, so you can see the properties which we can use in our UI5 application. So mostly for binding, let's say you want to bind any property. So which property you will refer? You will refer this name value. OK, so refer name value. And now let's say you want to append or you want to read the data from this PO header. So do you refer or will you refer this entity type or entity set? Which thing you will refer? Guys, I want to read a data for this purchase orders. So will I refer entity type or entity set? Just now I've told you. We will refer entity set. Okay. Always remember there is an entity container below in the metadata. And within that entity container, we can see the list of entity sets. So as of now, we have added only one entity set. So that's why you can see here. So always we have to refer the entity set name whenever you want to read the data from any OData service. Okay. So this is a basic structure of service metadata document. So this is a service metadata document for the OData service. Okay. So UI for developer. So front-end developer always they will check or cross verify all the details in their metadata in the service metadata document. So let's go back now. So now this is your gateway client. So there is a T code to open this gateway client. What is that? IWFND/GW underscore client is the T code for that. Okay. So T code to open is IWFND/GW underscore client is the T code through which you can open this gateway client for testing purpose. Okay. So now let's implement the entity set, like that is a PO header set, because it is not implemented yet, right? And that's why it's giving us the status code with 501. So let's go back in our gateway service builder and where to implement. So you can simply expand this service implementation. And now we have to implement get entity set. OK, so right click on this get entity set and there is an option called go to ABAP workbench. So now when you click on go to ABAP workbench, it's giving a basic confirmation like the operation PO header set get entity set has not yet been implemented. And because of that only we were getting 501 error, right? That the particular method is not implemented in DPC class. So now we will go back in ABAP workbench and we will implement this. OK, so let's go back here and now you can just expand methods and expand inherited methods under that. And where is our get entity set? So this is our get entity set method. PO header set underscore get underscore entity set. Right click on this and there is redefine method. OK, so now we will redefine this method and we will write our own custom logic to implement this method. OK, and this is a part of DPC underscore ext. So by default, it will take you to DPC underscore ext. OK, so always we have to make a modification in DPC underscore ext subclass, not in DPC, because that is only DPC. If you see, that is your base class. Redefine. See, so I'll just remove this piece of code from this method. I'll keep it as a blank and I'll just activate this method now. OK, so once you activate this and now if you run, at least you will not get any error. See, now am I getting any error now for that as a 501? No, right? Because just now I have made a redefinition and I've activated that method. Only that thing when I have did so far. But at least I'm not getting any error now. OK, so now we have to write a logic which can help us to read the data from that OData service. So what we have to do, we have to read the data from the OData service from that method. So from which table we have to read the data? What is a table, guys? Custom table. 1 second, wait, just 1 minute. So from which table we have to read the data? The table name is this one, right? ZT purchase order. So this is a table from which we have to read the data. And now for that we have to write a query here. So I'll write select star from this table into corresponding fields of table. See, after reading the data from that custom table, we have to pass this data to the outside world. OK, there should be some table, external table, which will carry that data to the outside world. So that patterns or that parameter details, you can get it in a signature part. So click on this signature. So there are importing parameters and exporting parameters. Importing parameters will always carry the information which we have passed in the URL. Like for example, I want to filter the data. So the details which I passed in the URL for that filter. So I'll receive that in IV filter select option or IV filter string. OK, because these are importing parameter. Any parameter, if you see it start with the I, that means you're importing parameter. And similarly, any data that you want to pass to the OData service. So for that, we have to pass it to the exporting parameter. Now there is an exporting parameter called ET underscore entity set, which will carry the data to the outside world. OK, now this is what we have to pass. So this is the exporting parameter which will carry that data, and you can just add. That's it. So this is my basic understanding. So I'll just check this code. So there is no syntax error, and I will activate now. OK. After activating, let's go back in the service and now let's execute. See, now how many records I have? You can see I'm able to read all the data which is available in that service or in that custom table. See, I got the records now, guys. Can you see all the records? OK, now if you want to read this in JSON format, add URI option, add $format equal to JSON and just execute. See, now I can read the data in a JSON format. So this is my JSON format data. OK, so now can I bind this service to the UI5 application easily? At least my service is ready, right? Which can provide all the records. Yes or no, guys?
Yeah.
OK. Now see, apart from this service, at least my service is ready now. But now within this service, there can be the different operations like we can add a filter, we can add a pagination concept. If you know, like, let's say if you want to implement pagination, so that also you can implement on this. You can add a sorter functionality, all that you can do. OK. So first, I think we will go with I think this pagination and all, we will see this tomorrow. Let's implement a basic CRUD operation now. OK, let's implement other method like get entity now. But at least our get entity set is implemented. Now we will see how to implement get entity. So tomorrow, guys, we will start with the basic, like we will see how to add a filter, sorter and pagination. And next we will see how to implement your navigation and association. OK. Yeah. So now I have just implemented get entity set. Now let's implement get entity. OK, so what is the purpose of get entity? Now see, when you go back to this output, OK, so can you see in bracket SR number equal to 1, comma, EBLN equal to the name of purchase order? Can you see this? So every record will have this. OK. So whenever you want to read a single record, so mostly we read a single record by following this syntax. I will copy any one of the record and I'll paste it here. OK, see, so you can also read a single record by following this syntax. But within that, we have to pass key value pairs. OK, we have to pass the key values in key value pairs. SR number equal to 1 as it is an integer. So the value that I will be passing, it will be an integer. EBLN, it's in the string format. So we have passed in a single quotes. And now if I execute this, Now see, I'm getting error. Which method it's telling us to implement? Get entity. Can you see now? So whenever you want to read a single record by passing key value pairs of key fields, so for that we have to implement get entity, not get entity set. Okay. So now we have to implement get entity. Let's go back here, right click on get entity, redefine, and you can just delete. Now let's add a code in this. So to implement a get entity, it's a very simple process. Like we just have to read the data and now we just have to provide the details within this. I think that would be enough if you do that. Okay, so I would be creating a data. So we need two variables, one of type EBLN. Okay, one of type EBLN, and similarly we need SR number as well. So this is my SR number. Okay, now after that, how we will read that data? Okay, how to read the data from this? Because when you pass any details, okay, when you pass a details here, like within a URL, we have passed SR number equal to 1 and EBELN equal to 45, like the purchase order number. So how to read this data from the URL? So that data, you will get it from the importing parameter called IT key tab. Okay. So this is a table of name value pairs. Can you see? The type of this parameter is a table, and this table will carry the values which we pass to the key fields from the front end or from the browser, right? And that values will be available within this table. So for that, how to read a table? So wait, I think just 1 second. Okay, I'll just comment this. Let me just check and I'll activate this. Okay, so I'll just put a breakpoint here. I'll set an external breakpoint, and now I'll just execute. Now my debugger will stop here. Okay. Okay, so can you see a IT key tab here? So this IT key tab, you can see there are two records in this IT key tab. So click on this. So can you see we have passed two key fields. One is SR number, second is EBLN. So okay, so from this name, so we have to refer this name column, and from that name column we have to refer, or we have to get a value from that value column. Okay, so this is what the IT key tab holds. So to read the data or respective rows from the table, so for that we will write this code now. Okay, so I'll write LVIBELN equal to, we'll write value hash IT key tab, and then in square brackets I'll say we want to read the column that is EBELN value. So whatever the value is there from that column, so we will store that in LV underscore EBELN. Okay, so that only we have written, and similarly we will do it for the LV underscore SR number. Okay, so instead of EBLN, we'll write it for SR number. That's it. Now let's check. I think probably we will have a syntax error. I think in which place we have syntax error? Let me check. Yeah, okay. This is strange in ABAP, and I'm not good with ABAP, okay, guys? Yeah. So after reading the data, so we got the respective values from the table and we have stored that in respective fields or variables like LB EBLN and LB SR number. Okay. After that, what we have to do, we will add one condition because now we have to read a single record from the table. So I'll say if LB underscore SR number is not initial and LB underscore EBELN is not initial. Okay, then what we will do? Then we will read a single record. Okay, select single star from ZT purchase order into corresponding fields of. Now see which parameter will carry that single record. ER entity. Okay, ER entity is the exporting parameter which will carry that, where SR number equal to @LB underscore SR number and EBELN equal to @LB underscore EBELN. Okay, guys, got it? What we did here?
Yes.
Okay, so we just read a single record from that. And let me check. So there is no syntax error. And we will remove the breakpoint as well from this. Otherwise, let it be. Yeah, wait. So let me activate this. Yeah. So let's execute now. I think it's already running. So I think, yeah. So let me re-execute this. Okay, see, now are we getting a single record from that? So can you see a EBLN, the same that we passed here, ending with 12? And what is the SR number? SR number is 1 for that. Okay, so now I'm able to read a single record from that using get entity because I have implemented get entity in ABAP Workbench. Okay, any questions in this, guys? The source code, whichever I'm writing, so there is a document which I created and in which I have added all the source code. OK, so I've taken a screenshot as well for that in which you can refer. So any questions here, guys? So implemented get entity and get entity set. OK, now what is the next step? Now which record we should, which method we should implement? Now we will implement delete. OK, so we will quickly implement the delete and I think the time is up almost. So for implementing the delete, I think the same code is required. Only one thing we do, instead of select, we have to use delete. OK, so that is only the one change we have to do. So I'll copy this entire code. OK, so for implementing the delete as a method, so right click on this delete underscore entity, right click and just redefine. OK, so this is a method. So the code which I copy from here. So definitely for deleting also we have to pass key value pairs. Then only we can delete. OK. And now here like there is a select, right? So instead of select, what I will do. Wait. So I'll keep this. Right. Delete from this custom table Okay, only this is the syntax that we have to write for delete. Delete from that custom table where SR number equal to LV underscore SR number and EBELN equal to LV underscore EBLN. Okay, so this is the basic syntax for that. Yeah, let's activate this code. Okay, so how to delete, which method we have to use in HTTP method. So far, like by default, we are calling get. Okay, so all these are get for reading the single record, for reading n number of records, which HTTP method is used, get. But now for deleting, which HTTP method we have to use, delete. So select delete from the top and then see URL must be in this way only. Okay, then only we can delete. So we have passed SR number and EBLN, and now I'll just execute. So what will happen in this case? So this specific record will be deleted from the table. Okay, see when I execute here, see 204, and now that record is deleted. Now again, let's say if you want to read the data, you can select get here and execute. See what it says, resource not found. So you got this, guys, right? So the specific record which we have deleted, it's not available in the table. Wait, we'll go to this contains and we'll execute. Now you won't see that record ending with 402. So the record which we deleted, which has 1, 2 as an ending purchase order number, but it has a SR number as 1. So we don't see any record with a combination of SR number 1 and ending with EBLN 12. So we don't have that combination. So just now we deleted that record from this table. Okay. Any